Hello, NeXT community. How's everybody doing out there? So, one of my hobbies beyond um, NeXT computers, they call us trackers, okay? And about 15% of lottery and winners globally do what's called tracking the lottery. And it's fun for me. It's kind of like there's handicapping on horse races. A lot of people do sports betting, and I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to it, because it's all supposed to be random. But I've been doing this for about 30 years, and for me, it's just fun. Um, I don't spend a whole lot. I'll buy one, two, or three tickets for my game is the Powerball drawing, and I felt like I was called up from the Cash Five drawings a while back into the big leagues. Why would a guy say stuff like that? Well, maybe because I hit four or five numbers 23 times. I really did, and I have won 10 grand in the Colorado lottery, first game, first week, but that was a scratch ticket, right? I got a little mad because the $50 and $500 winners were thrown into a pot for a chance to spin for $1 million, and we 10K winners, I don't know, the smallest violinist, were not included. And so I said, well, I've been dying for some payback, and I just want to hit it real big. So I got into the stats, and with spreadsheets and programming and next step, Lotus Improv, it kind of strikes home for me. Doing a display for Groover Labs out in Wichita, Kansas, as dedicated to Kurt Gridley, and he was one of the developers, main developer for Lotus Improv on NeXT, which is an amazing spreadsheet program. Still holds its own today. And so through the years, I've noticed it's really weird, but and it's audited by the FBI. It's the only government game that's legal. Game of chance. Um, it's sponsored lotteries have sponsored things like completion of the Washington Monument. Goes back thousands of years. In fact, there's coded messages that go back a long way. So I've taken the approach. Well, what if there was a game within a game? And I made the lottery aware of this a while back that someone was messing with the stats. Or I want to say around the year 2000. They were skewed just enough where I suspected something was being rigged. And I'd forwarded it to the head of the lottery at that time and to the NSA because I'd done business with them. And the head of the lottery was a guy named Tipton at that time. And you're not going to believe who was dirty. So it turns out Mr. Tipton had what's called a rootkit. And so he was able to program in some of these drawings. And these, I believe, were just electronic drawing machines to produce winners on certain dates on the calendar. And he had a couple of his friends cash in the tickets. Kind of reminds me of the McDonald's games. Where he got busted was he had a $16 million winner, and he tried to cash it in on the very last day. And they caught up with him. But I feel that may be the tip of the iceberg. And granted, a lot of these winners are legit, and it's just pure luck. A lot of them are, tracking, which is legitimate. But aren't games rigged in some extent? I mean, and that's what kind of draws me, to points of interest where I've done this long enough and I've looked at all these drawings and all the stats. We're talking over 30 years now. And one day, I would do sorts of all the numbers that have come up. And during those sorts, I noticed some peculiarities, like the same six numbers came up in two drawings. And I want to say from memory, it was, I think, the 100th drawing. I want to say 4394, somewhere in that area. And the 907th drawing, which was 12/27/2000. And on 12/27/2000, I found it interesting that there were indeed winners. Two winners, same six numbers, and the number 41 as a Powerball had not hit for 4.5 years and hit a few games before that. And they're audited. All the numbers have to hit over a certain amount of time. And then they periodically change out the ball sets when they become kind of worn out, and they send in new ball sets. Well, what I find interesting is it was the first drawing with the new ball sets as well. And they have four different sets of balls and four different drawing machines. And so I'm thinking, well, it's 2 days after Christmas. Maybe the regulars are on vacation over the holiday, and they sent in, the kind of the backup team, so to speak. And somewhere in the shuffle, maybe they put in a salted ball set, and the cue was the Powerball hitting, a few weeks. Maybe I'm a little crazy. It just seemed too coincidental that the very first draw of this new ball sets, that six identical numbers would come up from a previous, because if you're talking about 176 million to one, and how are the same six balls going to come up? I guess it's random, okay, but it happens more often than not. And so you get into the history of some of these winners, and I want to believe in my heart of hearts, that it's all just luck. But some of them, like the same member, member of a family, within a year and a half, two members hit the Powerball. 6 for 6 were winners. I thought that was unusual. Another one was, I think they called themselves the Ocean 16. Okay. And I empathize with them. Hurricane Sandy hit. The other thing that's interesting is 90% of lottery machines are manufactured in New Brunswick, New Jersey by Smart Play. And so I'm thinking, well, they go through rigorous tests and such. But in that, where the Ocean 16 won, and they were in New Jersey, there was also a second winner from New Brunswick, New Jersey in that same drawing, and a third in Minnesota. And I think that guy was a true winner. But maybe this Ocean 16, one of the members in the Ocean 16, her father was considered the grandfather, or they call him the godfather of the lottery. And he was a senator, which I thought was interesting, in New Jersey, and actually brought gaming, was instrumental in bringing gaming to, New Jersey. And I don't want to die, man. I don't. I'm just saying there's some unusual coincidences. And, he passed away by that time, and one of his daughters won in that drawing, and they split it. And I think that might have been kind of like the sting, and maybe that's what is happening. And I've noticed some unusual occurrences here lately, where they're not maybe getting all the balls counted in time, and they'll have to go back through an audit, and then things are delayed. And at one point, I think in one of the $1 billion drawings, it came up first with 7 winners. And then they went back through and audited, and it turns out it was only 1 in Oregon. So I think maybe they're tightening up things a little bit. because I've let them know, hey, I've sent it to the NSA again, saying seems unusual that we're getting a lot. Like with the McDonald's contest, it seemed like the same people were winning over and over and over again. And you don't necessarily have to hit 6 for 6. Okay, if you hit 5 of the 6 numbers, that's $1 million, right? And a lot of the winners, you could go and look at the stats, are in certain states. And maybe that's because there is a higher percentage of players in those states. But it seems to happen over and over and over and over again, to where, you've got, it's played all across the country. And it just seems like things are skewed. In my opinion, I could be totally wrong. You know, can they send through a signal that's a time delay that prints a ticket, and inserts it afterward the fact? Is it a time delay on the broadcast? They, run test drawings before and after. And he used to be able to get statistics on those as well. But I've just decided, for my sanity, just to go for the normal draw. I'm going to ignore all of that and just see how I can play it and have fun with it. So one of the things, I kind of go back and forth with whoever it is. Maybe it's aliens. Maybe it's time travelers. We've seen enough time travel movies. Maybe it's mobsters. I guess I could be bribed. Maybe it's the government, paying off snitches. I ain't snitching. I'm just saying we all want a fair chance to win this damn thing. So that's why I've created the Powerball decoder. And I put this out there on the web. You can look it up. Where I've actually gone through the effort to convert and try different code breaking techniques based on statistics. And so I find that numbers, citing letters and numbers, is, a common thing. Like the letter A is the first letter of the alphabet. The letter Z is the last number of the alphabet. So A would be 1, Z would be 26, and then you start over again, right? So 27 through 52, 53 through 69, and then the Powerball, there's 26 numbers in the Powerball. And they've changed that through time. They've changed the configuration of the game, but it makes it even more interesting when I'm doing sorts on my systems. And so I've tried, just the A through Z, and then I've tried different things where I've looked at the most common occurrences of letters in the English language. So I've got 4 different sets that I break down here, okay? And I'm hoping that this is actually recording. I think it is. I see the little button going up here. So I've got my grids here, and on the left side you'll see, I've got the numbers and the letters. And then this is like using, numbers to letters, most common letters to numbers in the English alphabet. And then there's one for Webster's as well. So I've got 4 different intonations. Like in this case, EARIOT are the most common. And then there's also ETAONRISH. That's another one. And then you got A through Z, and so forth and so forth. That's based on looking at dictionaries or Oxford. Oxford, I believe, is the EARIOT section. And so there's a couple different ways you can set it with formulas. There's the index, and then there's VLOOKUP. And I think it seems like I switched to index match here recently because it seems to be more efficient. And then if I make changes, it's a lot easier to go through and make changes. So recent drawings, I found this was interesting. For example, a couple drawings ago, it spelled out NUDE to start. Last drawing, I think before this one tonight was MEN or something. There's gauge. So you can see horizontally, vertically, diagonally. It's kind of like fun. It's like those Scrabble games. And so I go through and say, well, maybe some of these are lining up to give hints or clues towards the next drawing. As I say, maybe I'm a little nuts, but it's fun for me. And I've got all this stuff built, and it seems to work. So here's the other solutions, like the ETA, and I'll have to go back and look at what the other ones were. But I can actually look at, and there's like spans. So how often do all 69 numbers hit and so forth? So this is just one of the spreadsheets, and I've got every which way you can look at this thing, right? I've got, grids. We've got, here's my bell curve distribution with standard deviations. It gets pretty interesting, right? And then we've got, just on and on and on. So which columns, which numbers hit in, I've got odds and evens. And I go back through and add, update these. I try to stay with 3 or 4, but I'll go back in every month or so and add in and take a look at all the different stats. I'm also really limited in time because I am really busy with the next computer job in life. So I'll maybe have a half hour, an hour, before the drawings. And sometimes when I have a little spare time and I'm waiting for stuff to install, I'll come over and play with my spreadsheets and invent stuff. Here kind of shows, the most common numbers over time to hit. And I believe 39's in the lead. 32's pretty close second. So in fact, what I figured out is you can do a ranking too. So if you drop over here, I've got those numbers ranked over time. And then I can close it down to, okay, this is all the way going back to 92. I can make it, whatever span I want, and it'll give me statistics on that. The odds and evens gets interesting. How often are there, all even, all odd? What can ever be all odd? How often is it 2 numbers of one and 3 of the other? And so here's my index match, and this is where it gets really complicated because I've gone, down into the rabbit hole here, and this is where it gets really fun. So I'm comparing column A to B and, subtracting the difference, ranking them and seeing what comes up, and you'll get stuff like ring here, like someone's dialing in. Maybe it's the afterlife, maybe there's, Thomas Edison thought the telephone was maybe a way to communicate. It could be, and if anybody was going to do it, I think Steve Jobs would be trying to figure out a way to ping us from the other side. I don't think I'm crazy. I mean, and if you look through, it's interesting. So I've got this set up to where I can forecast what the effect would be if we just add in, say, the number 27 hits, for example, right? So 27 hits, and it changes the outcome. You'll see columns change or not change, just depending on how tight the tolerance is. We'll do 32. Right, and then we'll go to 47. And to get a real handle that this whole thing is actually working, you can see if I just start adding stuff in here, how everything changes. So this is basically what happens if those numbers come up in the future. So it starts spelling out different words. Right? If I put, to show that it is a working spreadsheet, if I type in an O, like the letter O instead of 0, you can see how it breaks the entire thing, right? So that's how detailed this thing is. So all this works, and that's called my index match. And this is some really complicated mathematics, right? So it's fun, not easy by any means. And I've got each column, so whatever number hits within each column, it breaks it down and it shows the difference in changing with each column, and wherever that ball in the first one could affect stuff way down here, and vice versa, right? And then I've got it tallied right here, so I know if the numbers are cleared. And inevitably, I just want to add 5 numbers to see how things go. Now, that's just one of the spreadsheets. This one I call kind of like my battleship. So what it does is you've got the numbers up top here, 1 through 69. And then if you scroll over to the right, you've got the Powerball numbers where they hit and see if there's any kind of pattern to them, right? And so I'll notice things like you'll get them to hit, a couple times in a row, or they'll maybe see how this one steps over here to the right. And I say, well, maybe, it's got a good chance. When I have it blue, that means that they haven't hit in a while. And obviously I haven't updated this because these two did hit. Where it's red, it means it's a hot number. And usually when it gets down to about 20 drawings is when I start changing this up here. So I haven't had time to update things, right? And so you can kind of see hot areas and cold areas. And sometimes I'm able to toss out entire columns because they'll go cold, but what I mean by columns is in each column, the machine itself has 14 balls. So I've even looked at that. And then I look at, what happens, like you could get when 69 hits, that's obviously at the end of the column. And when 57 hits here on the right, that means that it's at the beginning of that column and so forth. And they always put them in order in the machine. They are all really tight tolerance, so they have to be. And it's all audited. So it's really kind of neat. If there were ever going to be, any cosmic stuff in a way for things like quantum entanglement to take place, perhaps from beyond. And, maybe it's like baseball players and stats. So, for example, why is it that when a number like 39 hits consistently, right? And yet right next to it, 41 will only hit once, and then 39 hits 5, 6 times. Other numbers will hit 5 or 6 times. And, numbers over time are consistently really cold. And yet they all seem to kind of stay within a certain bell curve. And a bell curve is in statistics when there's kind of a center point. And with random number sets, that shouldn't be the case. And yet it's amazing how close to a bell curve it actually exhibits. And so I wanted to show tonight's drawing because I'm, inputting all these numbers. And so on the right here, we've got a little ticket, and you can buy them online now in Jacket Pocket. And so I maybe, as I say, I'll play 1, 2, or 3. I don't win all the time, but I've got a pretty good rate. And this is a Powerball, so it was a pretty long shot. So let's see what happens in tonight's drawing, just for fun.
It's time to play America's favorite jackpot game. This is Powerball.
And you can see over here my tickets for tonight, the 17th.
Jackpot is worth an estimated $75.7 million. So get your tickets ready. Here come tonight's winning numbers. Let's start things off this evening with the number 47.
I have 47.
Right after that, America, we have the number 66.
Don't have that.
Congratulations to Barbara Easley from Iowa.
I had that as a Powerball.
Playing Powerball. All right, the rest of your winning numbers.
I have that one.
27. And we'll round it out tonight with the number 30.
And I have the 32.
And tonight's winning Powerball number. That's going to be 26.
So I even had a 31, 32, so you can play numbers next to each other. So
let's take a look at tonight's winning numbers.
That's pretty good. I literally had 3 numbers as a winner. I think I win $7. That 4th number would have been up to 200 if I would have hit the 5 numbers. That would have been $1 million, and all 6 would have been 75.7. And that's what I'm after. So there you have it, my little jump into my pastime of lottery statistics, you know. And I give these NeXT computers something to do by crunching the numbers now and then. But obviously, my spreadsheets have kind of outrun the software, so I've had to modernize. Um, but it is fun for me. Hope you enjoyed that. And you can just play your birthday. You could do quick picks, or you could not play at all. But I kind of have fun just picking the numbers. And, the Cash 5 games have easier odds. They're still astronomical. But for me, I figured, well, I might as well swing for the fences and maybe one day I'll hit it. Tonight, pretty dang close. And then, you have to see, maybe it'll tell, let's see, it should say by now if I've won a Powerball prize, or maybe not. But it'll send me a little notice that you've won a Powerball prize, and I kind of dump them off into my numbers to keep track of them. I wish this app had a little bit better, way of taking all that data that I've played rather than having to do it draw by draw, and figuring where I could dump that into a spreadsheet to see how my numbers have done over time. But I've also got a notebook, so I write everything down and I have a little fun with it. So back to doing NeXT stuff. Hope you all have enjoyed this little delve into statistics and mathematics. It's always been fun for me to do these things, even beyond NeXT, and have fun out there. Just trying to brighten everybody's mood. It's been kind of a crazy situation, but things are looking better. Have a good evening.